Good morning, folks. Thank you for joining the VMLIP Law Enforcement Academy webinar. We're going to be kicking this off in the next couple of minutes. We're just waiting for a handful of attendees to join us, and then we'll be getting this going. Just a few kind of best practices for this webinar. We do recommend, if you don't have the best internet connection at your desktop, we do recommend calling into the webinar just to make sure that you can hear and soak in everything there is to learn today about the webinar that we'll be conducting. So if you have your computer audio on, you're not having any issues, that's just fine. But if you do have issues, or if the audio cuts out for you or slows down, we do recommend just calling in for the audio portion. If you have any questions concerning that, just let us know. Also, during the presentation, everyone is going to be muted during this webinar today. That just helps us get through it in a nice, quick manner. But additionally, if you have any additional questions, we do encourage audience participation. So you'll notice likely on the left side of your screen, there is the opportunity for an attendee chat. You can go into that chat session and ask any additional questions you might have concerning the new service or anything that comes up or comes to mind. Definitely don't be hesitant to ask those questions, as we're going to work through those and try to address those as we're navigating through the actual webinar itself. So we're just going to give it a couple more minutes, folks, and I appreciate for those who joined the call earlier this morning. We're just going to give it a couple more minutes for just a handful of attendees to join us, and then we'll get going. Okay, folks, it looks like we've got everyone on the call now. For those who are just now joining us, I appreciate you joining the VMLIP Law Enforcement Academy webinar. Today we are going to be discussing this new value-added service that VMLIP is offering to those members participating in the law enforcement liability coverage or services here. Additionally, during this webinar, for those who are just joining us, we do recommend, if you have the opportunity or if you're logged on using your computer audio, should you have any issues with the connectivity or the audio during the actual webinar itself, we do actually recommend just calling in for the audio portion. We've identified that seems to be a lot more reliable oftentimes if you have a slower internet connection on your end. Additionally, today we're going to be discussing and breaking apart this webinar in really 3 sections. First and foremost, discussing this new service and all the training courses that are available to you all at no cost for participating in the VMLIP law enforcement liability coverages. Additionally, on top of that, this is a value-added service, so there are going to be no costs incurred to your department for participating in this program. As we navigate through this, we're also going to be breaking them apart again into 3 sections. First, discussing how a standard user or a non-administrator will engage with the actual training programs themselves, or how they interact and navigate through the training site. Really, we would like to put emphasis on this to identify the ease of access to the actual training platform and the ease of navigation through the training system itself. After that, we're going to be navigating or funneling right into the administrative portion of the system, which provides you all as account administrators or department administrators the ability to not only create assignments, add additional employees into the system, but also track and document that user training progress. And then the last portion of this webinar, we will be discussing how this does apply for the in-service training credit. So we're going to be discussing what's required from both our end as well as your end on documenting the training that's being provided, and we'll show you and navigate through the tools or various reporting tools that are going to achieve that for you. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and just kick this off. My name is Tony Green. I am the Director of Operations here at LocalGovU. I've been on with this team for right at 9 years now, just celebrated 9 years in August. Really my specific function here within the organization is to really track and document training trends within the industry. I perform somewhat of a product manager role where I go through and I assist programs like this in getting this off the ground and facilitating these programs and the outreach with the members themselves. Additionally, I oversee all of our marketing, sales, and content efforts through our local GovU and local Gov Academy divisions. And again, we work with roughly about 45 pooling organizations throughout the United States. So we've been doing this for quite some time, and we look forward and are excited about the opportunity to offer this service now to VMLIP members. So for those that are able to join us today, we also will be recording this webinar as we speak. So for those who are unable to attend this session, or if you had anyone within your department who may have expressed interest, you will actually be able to provide them with a direct link to this recorded webinar session. Once we finish this up, we'll be putting this on the new VMLIP Law Enforcement Academy portal page, which we'll be showing you here in just a second. So again, if you have any questions during this webinar, we are going to keep it muted for the sake of just navigating through the session today. But if you have questions or anything that comes to mind that you'd like to ask, on the left-hand side of the screen or the Any Meeting login, you should see an opportunity for attendee chat. If I could just get one individual or anyone to test that out for me really quick, or give me a thumbs up or thumbs down to make sure you can hear everything that I'm saying and you can view everything that's on the screen here. And Cynthia, thank you for acknowledging that. I appreciate that. So it looks like we're all good to go here. And without further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump right in. So this is the new law enforcement. And we got a question here, question added by Rick Clark. Let's just take a look here really quick now that this is coming up. Just going to take a look at that here. Okay, we got the Q&A test. All right, thanks again, Rick. I appreciate that. All right, folks. So what the screen you're looking at here, this is the new login screen for the VMLIP Law Enforcement Academy. We did send out some communication around this over the course of the last 3 weeks. If you have not received an email about the new program, or if this has not landed in your inbox, there's a chance it could have landed in the junk or email folder. But definitely just reach out to us following this webinar if you have any additional questions or need some materials in getting started. Our goal is to assist you from start to finish and really rolling this program out for your department, answering any additional questions you might have, and also hopeful for the opportunity to set up a one-on-one demonstration, much like we're going to be going through today, to give you a better understanding of the system and in a one-on-one format answer any additional questions you might have. Through this service, you all are assigned a dedicated account manager. His name is Stephen DeStacy. He's with our team, has been on our team for about 4 years now, but he's a pro at navigating every challenge or issue you might have in the system, or questions for that matter that you might have, and just getting set up, getting the reports and documentation or access to those reports and documentation that you're interested in, and really just making sure this is a streamlined program from start to finish for you and your department. So once you get on the screen, everyone has already been set up with a training account. We would just need to assist you in making sure that you have access and you've got your login credentials that have already been set up for most primary administrators. Additionally, you might be asking right away, well, how do I get my employees added? How do we get them up in the system? So again, that's where Steve really jumps into play as your dedicated account manager. And he should have already provided you with what's called an employee upload form. Again, if you don't have that information, we can certainly send that right on over to you. It's just a basic Excel spreadsheet that you can fill out and return back to us, and we will load this and your staff right into the system for you. And at that point, assist you in making the specific course assignments that you want to make available. So let's talk about that for a minute. Again, this program is offered as a value-added service. For those members participating in the law enforcement liability coverage, that means it is free of charge to all departments who want to participate. Additionally, the training itself is going to be recognized for distance learning in-service training credit. So we'll be discussing that on the last portion of this webinar today and kind of walking through what's required for you all. But again, by participating in this program, it's an opportunity for you guys to utilize this in parallel with some of your existing programs and training that you're conducting in-house already. And again, we just want to assist you in meeting those new training trends and identifying any needs that you have within your department that we can certainly attempt to address utilizing this training platform. So once you log in or you're on the login screen itself, users are set up with a username and password. We've gone ahead and set up, again, all primary administrators with a standard username and password, which we can update once we actually get you participated in the program or get you live in here. But once you log that in here, and we're looking at this, this VMLIP Law Enforcement Academy portal page, there's a couple other things that you can view here. Specifically on this page, you've got access to viewing the actual course list itself. So if you click there, it's going to provide you or send you over to a separate link where you can actually view that or download that course list directly from the system. Additionally, this is an interactive course list. You'll notice the list of course topics that are available here. This was selected by the VMLIP Law Enforcement Specialist, Thomas Bullock. Again, he's going to be a great resource for you. If you have any additional questions about this, you can always get in contact with him. We'll also be providing his direct or direct contact information following this call. So if you have any questions that you want to specifically address with Mr. Bullock, you're happy to do so, and he is just as happy to respond and make sure you've got all the right information. As we're discussing and looking at this course list, it's also interactive where you can select any one of these course topics, and it's actually going to shoot you over to a complete course description about that course itself. So as you can see here, it throws me right into the system, and I can see respond to mental illness. It identifies what the course summary is, the length of that course from start to finish, and that does factor in we consider test time to participate in that program itself, the learning objectives of that course, and the key topics included there. Jumping back to that login screen, though, again, you will be able to download that course list directly from the site. That way you've got something on hand that you can either keep for yourself or pass around to any additional staff personnel that might be interested in utilizing these programs. But once I am logged in, we're going to go ahead and dive right into the system and start navigating through this as a standard user in the system. So first and foremost, I just want to point out, right when you log into the system, if you'll notice we've got several headers here at the top of the screen itself, from progress and certificates all the way over to admin. Please note, for today's purposes, I am set up as an administrator for this webinar. But if this was a standard user for that matter, this admin link that I'm circling here in the upper right-hand corner will actually not be available. That's only set up for administrators on the actual training account itself. So instead, if I was a standard user, that admin link itself will be replaced with a standard reports link. And that reports link is really provided for that one end user who's accessing the training. They're not going to be able to see or document training for all employees that are added within this particular account. As you see, once I'm logged in here, there's a few opportunities for me as a standard user. Now, I haven't completed any training already in this account, but we're going to go ahead and I'm going to do a couple, just a quick forepass so we can see how that progress and certificates button works here. We're going to jump in the back into my system and show you what this looks like here. This is how we successfully manage all the training accounts within our programs here. But just to give you an idea of what those certificates of completion earned looks like, when a user does complete training courses and they do actually pass the final exams that are associated with that training, at that point you've got the opportunity to earn that certificate of completion, which means that you have completed everything from start to finish in the actual training account itself or in that particular course. So when I take a look at my progress and certificates here, it's going to throw me right here to the system. It's breaking that apart in two sections for me. I can either see current courses or all certificates. The only difference there is all certificates provide documentation and an overview of all completions for the life of the program. So 1 year, 2 years from now, this will still have documented on that user progress page all of their earnings or all their certificate earnings for the life of the program. So we never lose documentation. We're always going to maintain that for the life of the program itself. Current courses just means those current course licenses and training courses that you have access to. If I look at all certificates in this instance, we just completed that Communication Skills 1. If I view that certificate of completion, again, this is where you're going to find this is co-branded, so to speak, for VMLIP, the Law Enforcement Academy. You can choose to print that in black and white or in the color copy itself. But additionally, it is not required to print or save these certificates of completion. That said, if you still keep personnel records or files, you can certainly do so from the system, but we're also going to provide you a lot of access to various reporting tools that are also going to capture and document this information. So we're going to migrate and discuss that once we finish up with the admin portion here. But otherwise, jumping from progress and certificates, if I wanted to take a look at the preferences section, this is one area, kind of a settings section for the end user where I can go and either update my username and password, my email address if that changed, whatever the case may be. That's the section where you're going to find that at. Additionally, logout's going to punch you right out of the system, and any progress that you've made through an actual training course, if you get interrupted, you have to walk away, you can hit logout, and it's automatically going to document and save your training progress. This is particularly important when you've got these 1, 2, and 3 hour courses that you might have access to. We understand you're not going to be able to sit down and complete those in one single setting. So our system does offer a convenient bookmarking feature that actually allows you to navigate through that at your own pace. Should you get interrupted, you have to walk away. You can either log out or just X out of the screen. It's automatically going to bookmark right where you leave off at, so you're never going to lose that training progress. Lastly, from there in particular, should you log back into the training, or even if you decide to pick up right where you left off, when you log back into a course, it is going to give you that opportunity to pick up right where you left off or start over from the beginning. So again, just reiterating, you are never going to lose your training progress as you navigate through this training program. Just jumping back to the welcome screen here, I'm going to go take a look at, and from this welcome screen, when a user logs in, the next step is to click here and see your courses and get started. So when I select that link, I'm immediately going to be thrown into those courses that I have been assigned as an end user. And what does that mean? So while there's a wide array of course selections that are made available currently through this program, you as an administrator on the account, you have every opportunity to ensure or decide what training courses out of the selections that are made available that you can assign your employees. It doesn't mean that you have to assign them everything. You have that opportunity to pick up and choose what courses you want to make available. So we are just going to skip ahead really quick into the admin section so I can showcase that while I'm discussing this here. All I would do is click on that admin link, and we're going to expand some of that access really quick. Again, we'll cover this when we go through the admin portion, but now that we're discussing this topic, we're going to take a look at that here just to show you how you can interact with your end users, how you can send them notifications of new course assignments when you make courses available, and so on. We're just going to assign courses to a single user here, and I'm just going to pick a few of these full-length course topics. Now, we're also going to be discussing the types of courses that are available here. Here in just a second, once I assign these or make these available to you all, or to myself, I should say. Go ahead and hit submit there. And immediately what happens is, now what I just did was, while it looked like a single assignment to a single user, which was the case, this tool is also used for bulk assignments, so to speak. So a large number of users, how you can use this, meaning you don't have to make course assignments one by one per user. You could do that in bulk by groups of users or selecting the individual users that you want to provide that access to. Immediately when I go to make that assignment too, it's asking me if I would like to send these individuals an email notification letting them know that they've been assigned new courses to access. I'll just go ahead and hit yes. That system is extremely responsive. So what I mean by that is they will receive that email immediately. The moment you hit yes, that's going right into their inbox. And we'll be working with you all to make sure that the email addresses and the notification email addresses are whitelisted, meaning they're not going to land in everyone's junk folders or spam or clutter and so on. Now at this point, I'm going to return right back to the training here, and you're going to notice that my training access has expanded significantly. So I no longer have just a few course selections. I've got a good handful of selections available to me. So let's now talk about the types of courses here. We work with, and our sister company is actually PoliceOne.com and the Police One Academy. So we leverage our relationship with PoliceOne.com as well as the subject matter experts that they provide us to really craft and create the strongest training platform we can and the strongest content that we can make available to you all. It's not only, while we have content writers in-house who research and develop and design the content, we're working with over 150 subject matter experts from various areas of study who provide us with these resources and allow us to craft that and deliver that. So ensuring that we provide the most up-to-date and valuable information that is that's pertinent for our law enforcement members. Really two types of training courses you're going to have access to between what we refer to as full-length or video block training courses. So if we see these communication skills 1 through 4, corrections 1 through 4, cultural awareness 1 and 2, those types of courses or course topics are what we consider video block courses. It's generally comprised of anywhere between 5 to 8 training video segments. Those video segments can be anywhere between 5, 10 to 15 minutes long a piece. And it's really structured by providing you with the overview or the learning objectives of that particular video and what your takeaways are, and then the video itself. Whereas the other courses provided here, which we consider our full-length course topics, those are really designed as what we refer to as blended learning courses. We utilize the ADDIE method in creating this, which is really the best practice for adult learning principles. Making sure, the short bite-sized segments, the ability to get in and out, ensuring that the information presented on each screen is presented in a manner that kind of omits any additional scrolling or, again, just delivering those in those bite-sized segments. So in order to start a course, all you have to do is click on the course title that you want to begin, and you're going to jump right into that training course. So we're going to take a look at anti-bias training for law enforcement here. This is one of our newer course topics that was just delivered about 6 months ago. And I'm going to go ahead and turn off that audio so it doesn't step on my toes here. You'll notice here when I log into the course, though, we've got this module menu on the left-hand side. We've got our navigation buttons here in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. And we've got this audio-video bar right here at the bottom. Keep in mind, every course that we have does provide the audio playback option. So that's really in compliance with the ADA Act, for that matter, ensuring that there are both the visual and audio components built into the actual training system itself. Additionally, as we navigate through that, again, it's designed as that self-paced model. So you'll notice after I get through the introduction site itself, when I start navigating through into the other modules, it's not going to allow me just to, so to speak, jump ship or jump from the start of the course to the end of the course and assume that I can just complete that training. The system does require you to step-by-step, procedurally step through the system without cutting corners, for that matter. Again, as I navigate through this, you're going to find that there's a blend or a mix of the text on screen as well as various video segments embedded within the training itself, progress checkpoints embedded within the course just to kind of test your knowledge as you're navigating through that training itself. And so quickly, we're just going to kind of jump through these and show you the different instances and interactions within the training course itself. Again, you'll notice here on that module menu on the left-hand side, it breaks that course down by module, meaning it allows you to see what's involved and on what's upcoming in that training course itself. This is that checkpoint right here in the system, and I do have to answer that correctly in order to move forward and navigate through the course itself. Now, because I'm logged in here as an administrator on this account, we are just going to jump right to the summary wrap-up page. For this particular course, again, I'm set up as a master admin, so I can navigate and jump right to the end here. But just to give you an idea of what that testing component actually looks like, when you get to the final page of that course itself, you do have to participate in the testing portion of this in order to earn that certificate of completion. So once I proceed to testing here, it's going to break down what are the number of questions, what's that required pass percentage, and it identifies who I'm logged in at. This is important, particularly if you're using a shared computer. We're not going to run into this issue if you have your own workstation, but if you're working on a shared computer, oftentimes folks like to save their own passwords or put those in the password safe depending on what browser you're using. So it's important just to make sure you are logged in as the correct user and you're not logging in with someone else's credentials that may have been pre-filled or something along those lines. Once I'm at this portion now, I'm going to go ahead and select to start testing. It's broken down in a very smooth manner, so you can see here from start to finish, it's got those questions listed. It's very forgiving for that matter, so I can kind of pick and choose. I don't have to be right on top of the bubble for that matter. I can kind of just click anywhere outside or within that line there. It's going to select that option for me. I am just going to be selecting these at random. My hope here is to actually fail this exam, and I can show you kind of the other functions that are available here. So let's go ahead and finish and grade. Okay, so I still got a 50%. That's not too shabby for going at will there. But again, the score needed to pass is 80%. So what happens next is the system actually documents this as a failed attempt. We do keep track and document the number of attempts from start to finish that it takes for a user to actually pass that training exam. So what does that mean for you as an administrator? As an administrator, you'll have eyes on to the various reports access that you've got access to identify if there might be kind of an underlying trend. If you have a user that it's taken multiple attempts to pass or fail a course for that matter, there might be another underlying issue that you might not be cognizant of as an administrator. I mean, for instance, if an employee takes roughly 15 attempts to pass the sexual harassment training or harassment awareness training, first and foremost, you probably want to keep that employee locked away and nowhere near any other employees for that matter. But on a serious note, truly, it's identifying that there might be an underlying issue that you need to address with that employee and take the next step from there. Additionally, the system is going to tell us the 5 questions that I've missed. We do not give the correct answers, however. We do give the answers that the user actually provided, though. So if you were on the fence on one of the questions or you knew it was one or the other, it's a good opportunity to kind of fact check that and make sure you got the correct information moving forward. You can see there the answers that I chose are marked with an X below. So again, it's if you were on the fence about one of those questions or anything, you kind of cross one option out and move forward there. We're going to go ahead and exit out of this. I'm not going to try to complete this. Again, once you do earn an actual certificate of completion, or if you pass that course, you'll be provided with a certificate of completion at that point. That's going to be documented, again, for the life of this program, and it also immediately syncs with the various reports access that you all have available. Just jumping back to that course selection screen one more time, one thing I did not cover in particular, if we look here, is choosing or breaking that down by course category. You can see here, if I was only interested in seeing the law enforcement training courses, I could choose that category and it's going to filter out all the other course selections or options that I have there. You can always jump back to all categories, but that just helps kind of focus on the training courses that you're interested in actually utilizing or moving forward with, not necessarily all courses that have been made available to you as an end user. Before we move forward any further here, that does somewhat wrap up the user portion of the system. I just want to take a pause here and see if anyone has any additional questions on how a user can navigate through the system. Additionally, as we talked about, getting users added into the program itself, that's as simple as filling out that employee upload form and return that back to us. We're going to take it from there. We'll review that information first and foremost, make sure we have all of the documented info that we need for recording purposes. But once that's done and finalized, we'll actually load your staff for you. We generally try to turn that around within about 24 hours notice. So by the time we get notified and provided that employee upload form, we strive to within 24 hours ensuring that all employees are up and running in the system. At that time, once we've loaded your employees into the system, our dedicated account manager, Steve DeStacy, will be reaching out to you before any specific courses are assigned to all employees. We like to identify if there are specifics that you would like to make available instead of providing access to all courses within the system. So again, if you have any questions concerning that user access at this point in time, we really just want to walk through this and showcase that ease of access, the involvement or the steps that it takes to get into the system. Again, one of the biggest concerns with online learning is individuals who might not be the most tech savvy or work on a computer all the time. So if we can identify and break down those barriers that and show that ease of access, and really, as long as the user can plug in their username and password and use their pointer finger to click a mouse, that's really all it takes to actually interact or get through a training course. So we'd like to reiterate that again. But any additional questions before we move forward into the admin portion of the system? I'll just give a moment here, and if you have a question, go ahead and address that in that attendee chat box. Okay, no news is good news. We're going to take that, folks. Again, any questions that might pop up, and this is likely one of those areas where you're going to have more questions now, please feel free to funnel those over into the attendee chat, and I will address those either immediately, or if I'm working to that portion, I will address it at that point too. Okay, there was a question from Cynthia McAllister. Can a sergeant do this course with their entire squad and take the test together and get credit for all? Due to the fact that this training is going to be recognized for in-service credit, from an online training standpoint, the training must be conducted by each user in order to earn the applied credit. If this was not, or if you did not plan on submitting this for in-service credit, then at that point we have absolutely no issues with you utilizing this in a classroom type format. We do have a lot of folks that utilize this in classroom type environments and provide that in a collective audience. But again, from an in-service credit standpoint, if you're seeking to achieve in-service credit for this training course, it is a requirement that each individual user must have a documented user record and completion record for that training. Does that answer your question, Cynthia? If not, you and I can connect one-on-one following this at some point, and I appreciate your participation, though. That's a great question. All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and jump right into this. As you saw previously, all I did was select that admin icon in the upper right-hand corner of my screen. If you are identified or set up as an administrator on this program, you will have access to that link. Otherwise, if you're just a standard user, you'll never have access nor see that link to gain access to the admin site. We've tried to break this down and make this, again, as user-friendly as possible. The interaction with this, the end goal is to ensure that we give you the tools necessary to not only conduct the training, but record and document and achieve all those training records in one convenient location. But additionally, aside from that, we want to offer that ease of access to simply navigate through the site, to make an assignment on a one-off needs basis, or collect the data that you're interested in without really having to jump through a lot of hoops to obtain that. So you'll see here on the left-hand side of the screen, we've got our admin menu, and then on the center portion of the screen here, it's given a breakdown of what those tools on the left-hand side of the screen are going to be able to accomplish for you. Starting with users and groups, all the way down to the Get Certificates options, provides a brief definition or overview of what that tool or function on the left-hand side of the screen is going to do for you. So we're going to start through that from head to toe and just kind of jump through all these various use case examples to give you a better idea of how we utilize these tools in the system. First and foremost, we've got the users and groups section. If this was an active, up and running account for that matter that was driving utilization, we would likely see various groups or departments broken down into this account. And what I mean by that is the system really allows you to take a look at your own department and break it down by the various groups or segments that you have within your department. So when we think about a police department, we're thinking about a patrol division, we're thinking about possible canine or SWAT or dispatchers, whatever the case may be, it allows you to utilize this tool in the system to break that down and structure it as you have in-house. So you would simply need to, and I've already created my patrol group, but to create additional groups, we're just going to walk you through how that's accomplished. I'm going to select Create New Group in the upper center portion of the screen here. And we've got two options at this point. Does this want to be a new parent group? I mean, is it really its own subset or identifier like the patrol division, or such as 911 telecommunicators or administrative personnel? That would be a parent group. However, we can also create subgroups of the various parent groups for that matter. So if we think about patrol, we might have that broken into 3 shifts for that matter. We might have our graveyard shift, morning and evening shifts. So it allows you to break apart and apply specific subgroups to detail that down to the fullest or kind of most minute detail that you see necessary. And really where this comes into play at is from an administrative standpoint, when you go to start adding additional users at a later time, or if you go into the system and select various reports access, by having these broken down into the various groups, it's going to give you more tools and more opportunities to utilize the various reporting concepts or tools that are available to you as well. And we'll show you that here shortly, what that looks like. We could say Shift A here, and that's a subgroup of patrol. We can also create subgroups of subgroups, but sometimes that can get a little crazy or convoluted at times as well. So if we go back and look at users and groups now, we see patrol and we see a subgroup there, but we can also go in and add, let's just say, dispatchers and use that as a new parent group. Go back to users and groups here, and we'll see that that's been broken down now. We've got dispatchers, we've got patrol, and we've got patrol shift A. Again, we're going to be touching on this when it comes to making additional course assignments through the license manager, as well as the tools available to you in the report side as well. Additionally, though, under users and groups, we also have the opportunity to add new users on an individual user basis. This would really particularly be for any new hires that you might have or anyone along those lines. It's our goal, first and foremost, to assist you in getting the bulk of all of your personnel added into the system. But this is one location where, should you have a new hire, you can go back and individually add a single user one at a time, as opposed to trying to drive 100 users individually through the system. That's where we come into play with that employee upload form to ensure that we're grabbing everything and making that really a streamlined process. Let's just take a look at what that looks like here. We're going to go ahead and add a new user, and we're going to call this test user. Okay, you'll notice that once I enter in my username and password, that is required, but as I enter in my email address, it's automatically pre-filling the username section. Now, additionally, keep in mind the only information that's required here is that which has a red asterisk to the right of the data box there. But again, email is certainly recommended, especially if you want to participate and utilize the various notification tools that are provided within the system. Or if a user misplaces their login credentials, they can leverage that email address to have that sent right back on over to them, or get that access link sent or emailed directly over to them. So it is certainly encouraged that we not only enter the email address, but utilize that email address as the employee's username. That's the one thing that's going to always be custom or specific to this end user here. So username, again, as we start filling in the email section, we're going to see that automatically starts filling out the username section there as well. The password must be at least 6 characters. It is case sensitive, so just something to keep in mind there. We generally do kind of a standard password when initially setting up users, but you can also, choose to provide your own username and password information, and we can update that for you as well. The next section we're going to look at here is the privilege option for that end user. So this is where we talk about the various administrative roles in the system. So we're going to cover those briefly here, starting with primary admin all the way down to a user. So first and foremost, a primary admin more than likely is going to be one of you all, or anyone that you identify as a key point of contact for the training platform itself. So if there's any changes within the system or new course additions, we leverage our primary administrator contacts not only to utilize those contacts within any communication that is provided around this service, but also as the key point of contact if we need to contact you for anything involving your training account for that matter. A primary administrator also has all access to the full admin system, which includes all documentation for all employees within the actual account. That means that you can add employees into any user groups that you identify. You can run reports for any and all employees that you identify. But really, you are that key point of contact and considered that super administrator for this program. Secondary to that is what we refer to as a standard admin. A standard admin has all of the same access and functionality that a primary administrator does. It just means that they're not identified as the key or number one point of contact for this training account. So you might decide that you want to remain the key point of contact, but maybe you want to add or pass off some of the administrative abilities, maybe to someone a little more junior or an executive assistant for that matter, that would be responsible for making updates, adding employees, run reports, and so on. So you could assign someone what we refer to as just a standard admin access. The next level down is what we refer to as a group admin. A group admin is also going to have all of these same functions, features, and access. The only thing different is they can only run those reports, they can only make those additions or make those assignments within their own group that they're assigned access to. So if I was set up in patrol, for that matter, as a group admin, I would not only be able to have access to my patrol folks within that one specific group, but also any subgroups that branch off of that. Same thing applies if I was the supervisor in the dispatchers group that I set up. I would only be able to see or have access to my employees in that dispatcher group. That's really the main three breakdowns of administrative rights. And then lastly, the last section being a standard user in the system, meaning no access to any of the administrative capabilities here in the system. Lastly, when I'm setting up and I make those privilege selections, I'm just going to set this user up as a standard user. I choose what group that they're involved in or what group they should be set up within. Hire date, again, that's not a required, that is an optional field, so most folks don't usually utilize or take advantage of that. We're going to go ahead and create the user. We're going to make note of one thing that happens here, and we're looking at these tabs along the top center portion of the screen. So right now, the only tab available to me is the details section. When I create this user, let me make sure I've got a good email address here. When I create this user, it's going to tell me user successfully added, but you'll notice here I've got these two additional tabs, access and results, that just popped up. So if I go to access, this is where we talked about assigning just a standard user or creating a standard user in the account outside of the big employee upload form that we're going to work through. But it's say this was just a new hire that came on with your department. This is the route you would go to set up that user and then grant them the training access. This access tab is one of two locations that we utilize to grant training access to an employee. You'll see here that I can actually select it by course. I can select it by course topic area, and just make those selections that I'm interested in actually utilizing here. You can select at random again, or just select all for that matter, and then update that access. Would you like this person to receive an email? Again, you're going to get notified or get this update access notification every time you do go to make an assignment, and that just automates an email directly to that end user, alerting them that they've been granted or assigned access. We can go ahead and hit yes here. It's going to work through that course assignment for me, and at that point it's ready. Those courses have been assigned to that user. The last tab here is the results section that we can see here. That actually allows me to see all of that user progress. We pride ourselves in really taking documentation of most every data point that we can identify in the system. So we not only track the time in the course, but we also track that down to the second that user has been involved in that training course. So you're going to see that as hours, minutes, seconds involved in the actual training material itself. Again, we can also document the number of attempts to pass an exam, what that passing score was, and or their last attempt in the actual training account. Let's just say, for instance, a user misplaces or can't find their login credentials. Let's just assume that they didn't plug in their email address initially, and we had to update that form. Once that's updated, you can also, from the details section, send passcodes to those users as well. It's going to send them their email and the link provided to gain access back to the training site. Again, once you select those icons and those notifications, that email is going to go out immediately to that end user. So you know that there's a very short, if any, turnaround time whatsoever in getting that information right on over to the end user. And we've done a lot on our end to make sure that that's optimized and very efficient for those types of notifications. The next section we're going to address here is the license manager. The license manager is really provided to give you all, as an administrator, a top-down view of not only what training courses are available in this training account for you, but also the number of access you have. It's always going to say unlimited. Again, it's a value-added service, so this is available to you all as well as any number of your employees that are interested in utilizing these programs. You can see the number of users those are assigned to. At any point, I can click on that number and see who's got access to that particular training course. We can also see through this legend if anyone has completed it or opened it like I have here. Just jumping back there. We can also see when these courses are set to expire. So this is made available on an annual training schedule, a calendar year training schedule from Jan 1 through December 31st. So we launched this program right really in the middle of June and started rolling this out and getting the information rolled out. Middle of July, and getting this information rolled out to all department heads and contacts that we've got in our system. So this program is now up, it's active, it's live, and it's ready for you guys to utilize. But if we see here, we see these courses set to expire on January 31st. That does not mean that this program is just going away effective January 31st. What this means is that we reset this access to all training content effective January 1st, 2018. Ultimately, what that means is we identify that oftentimes employees are required to maybe take the same course on an annual basis, or if they want to utilize that training again in a different calendar year, they can absolutely do so. But that is a process that's handled and satisfied on our end. There is nothing that you all need to do as an administrator in the account to ensure that your account's going to have access to the training. We will make that switch automatically on January 1st, 2018. And again, those courses will be readily available and ready to assign any employees who you deem that needs to have access to that training. Additionally, from this section, though, aside from being just a top-down overview of the training that's available, you can also assign or remove courses in bulk here. So when I select to assign or remove courses, it's going to give me four options. Do I want to assign courses to the users? Do I want to assign them to groups? Or do I want to remove course access from users or groups? Maybe you made the wrong assignment previously, and rather than, again, having to go through each user and remove that, you can do that in a big group setting here. This is also where, by setting up those groups of users, those departments like dispatchers, patrol, or patrol shift A, it gives me that many more options to make very specific course assignments to those groups of users. For instance, you might want your communication skills courses to only go to your dispatch group. Well, if you have 15 or 20 users in that dispatch group, it's really going to streamline and make that process that much more efficient in granting them access. The same thing applies with any other core areas of study that you're interested in providing your users access to. That is really all there is to cover on the license manager piece. Again, that's utilized just to have that overview of the content that's available to you all, and also to assign or remove courses in bulk. Again, once we upload your users in the system, we'll be assisting you in getting familiarized with that first course assignment that you look to make, or answer any additional questions you might have there. But the next section we're going to take a look at is jumping right into the reports page. When I select on reporting, I've got several options here. Now, granted, this is a new program that's just being launched, so it's roughly at most about a month old in getting this out and getting the information out. So we'll likely find that we're going to be looking to provide additional reports access as feedback is provided on exactly what you need. We look to make tweaks to this program to make sure it matures with your specific reporting needs. We do a great job of providing a key standard on the reports that are immediately available to you all currently. So we can see courses completed, not completed through user breakdown. You can also hover over these question marks. That's going to tell you what these courses are going to provide you with. For instance, a course completed report is going to show you all of the completed courses for that time period specified. The next section down is who do we want to run that report for? We run that for a specific group of users. Again, this is one of those instances where setting up groups and departments is going to become that much more valuable to you from the reports aspect and side of things. So it will give you those tools and capabilities to run a report specifically for your patrol division, or specifically for Shift A of the patrol division. The next section down is choosing that by user. You can either use that by all users or do that individually for single users by selecting them here. And the last section down for that courses completed report is running that for a very specific course topic. And this might come in handy if you slowly roll out a training curriculum to your employees, one course, 1 month at a time. You can always run in and see who completed anti-bias training for law enforcement, who did not complete anti-bias training for law enforcement, or whatever the course subject it was that you provide them access to, and it gives you that information readily available. Last section down that we're looking at here is the during section. You can do that for the current month, the current year, or between specific date ranges. Maybe you made a quarterly course assignment that was readily available to your employees. So you could run through that date range and identify who has or has not, again, completed that training during that date range identified. And then lastly here is the view as options. You've got HTML, CSV, all the way through tab. You've also got those question marks again. It's going to show you what those reports will do for you, but really the two most utilized are HTML and CSV, which is why we've got those at the top. HTML is going to present that information to you right front and center on the screen itself. It's not really going to export that for you, though. A CSV option is going to export that in a very clean, bare bones Excel format, meaning it's going to spit that out in a nice, clean Excel document that allows you to either save that information, but CSV format is also used for any import or export kind of report capabilities. So if you have another reports tool in-house that you utilize that you can import or export information from, that CSV format is going to be your bread and butter there to ensure that that's transferred over without issue. The next section we're going to jump at in just a couple more sections here before we talk about the actual in-service training requirements there. If we pull up the settings section in particular, there's not a whole lot this really allows you to do here, but in particular, if you, as the primary administrator, you change buildings, you change offices, you change contact info, we do encourage you to go through and edit or update your contact information. But really what's most important for you as an administrator is being able to actually alter the test settings. This is something that is widely utilized within our system, but really specifically for some of the more mandated training requirements that either happen on the department or the city or town level for that matter. What this means in particular is that you can, while our default is 80% pass percentage for a specific course subject, and that's across the board for all of our courses, you as an administrator can actually come in and raise the bar in 5% increments all the way up to 100%. So if there was a mandatory class that you were, not only just providing your employees, but you're looking to achieve a 100% satisfaction rating for the completions of that specific course topic, then you can go in and choose for that one course to update that to an 80%, or I'm sorry, from 80% through 100% pass requirements there. So that's just another bonus to this portion of the system to ensure that there is 100% understanding in any material that's what you're putting the requirement out there for. The last section here is the Get Certificate section. Again, this was a recent add to our system, but probably one that's a little underutilized as most departments are getting away from personnel files and file folders and such. And because we document every activity within the system, we've never had a data breach or a loss of information, so we've got this detailed for many, many years at this point. But we are always going to maintain that completion data for any and all users in the system for the life of the program. So even if you're no longer a member, or if meaning you're no longer a part of that one department, even departments don't have the ability to delete users. We can inactivate user access, but we're never going to delete a user or their existing user records. The only instance that we would actually remove a user entirely from an account is if they did not have any training records and they're no longer with the department. So we can assist you with that as well, but we do ensure that, even if they're no longer with the department, that their training is still documented and we would still have access to that should they need to uncover that information at a later time, or if they go on to go on with another department. So you'll see here I can choose that from generic certificates. I can choose those users or all users that I want to obtain those certificates for, and I can plug in that date range that I want to have access to those training courses for that matter, or those certificates. Once I plug in that date range, I simply hit Get Certificates. So we know that today was the completion of the first course in this test account here. So I'm going to use that as my date range, but again, this would really be for all users for a specific date range. We do have a second update coming to this here within the next month or so, and that's, you're going to see this pretty often. We do own and operate our own learning management system here. This is considered the learning management system, so it is proprietary to our business, and we do continually make updates and improvements on this site. Really focusing, however, more so on the efficiencies of the system, the optimization of the system, and ensuring that it works. So we proudly tout that this has an active site access of 99.9%. Any development or updates that we do in the system are all done behind the scenes, so there's never going to be downtime from gaining access to this platform itself. More than anything, it just works. It functions virtually error-free, so you shouldn't run into any issues whatsoever when trying to navigate through the system. But again, our technical service staff is always on hand to assist or answer any questions you might have concerning that. So that's somewhat of our brief but detailed overview of the administrative portion of the system. We are going to jump in next just to address and take a look at, what are the distance learning in-service training requirements. Again, Thomas Bullock, who is the law enforcement training specialist for VMLIP, he is available to answer any additional questions you have concerning this, as well as Steve DeStacy, who's going to be your dedicated account manager. He'll also have that information. If you have a pen and paper handy, I'm going to go ahead and provide you with Thomas's information as well. More than likely, most of you already have that, but again, that is Thomas Bullock III. He is the law enforcement specialist for VMLIP, and his direct line is area code 804-237-7365. His email address is going to be tbullock, that's TBULLOCK, @VMLINS.org. Again, he certainly encouraged you to reach out to him if you've got any questions, but really there's about 4 main requirements that the agency and the user must be able to provide for the in-service training requirements and to achieve in-service training credit through the various academies throughout the state. So first and foremost, that attendance roster demonstrating the attendance of the full session that is required to receive the partial in-service training credit. That is, of course, going to be achieved in your courses completed report section here within the system. So you just run that completion report. The user log shall also, and this is requirement 2, the user log shall also be kept for all distance learning, which includes the user's name, employee tracking number, the time that they were logged in and logged off, and the name of the training program itself. Partial in-service training credit will only be awarded for completed programs, meaning that user must earn an actual certificate of completion for that course and documenting that the user's time and course for that matter in order to obtain that in-service training credit. The third requirement really is the agency administrator or the designee of that agency shall obtain the course information. So we keep a running documentation on the courses themselves, including the subject matter expert, the date and time the class is available, which is indefinitely, or it's always available, as well as the instructor names and qualifications. So we have all the documentation on those content writers and the instructors of this particular training course. But again, because this is an online application, it's going to differ a little bit from your standard submissions that you're probably used to, for that matter. The information is going to be documented. So we're still looking and looking to work with some of the academies to see if we can funnel that directly through them. But again, our organization, we're post-approved and recognized in a total of 37 states. So there's really no process that we're not too unfamiliar with. But we want to ensure that we can provide you with all of the information you need, and we're available to make that information readily available to you by request on a moment's notice. So if you have any questions as we're getting these courses submitted for that in-service credit, definitely let us know. But lastly, the last requirement is that the online course itself must have a post-test, the answer guide, the lesson plan, the course objectives, and this is very standard with how we update all of our training courses. So we've got that lesson plan access. Of course, we've got the post-test and the answer guide and all of that information. So, as we begin funneling this back for the in-service credit, we'll likely, there's going to be some questions that pop up, but as you begin utilizing that and submitting that for that in-service credit, we are here to assist you from start to finish with all of those requirements, the information that you might need, and that's available by request. So we certainly look forward to not only providing this as a resource, but also helping you facilitate that submission process. Again, we'll be sending out some additional information about that, providing my direct contact information as well. You'll also have direct contact information from Steve DeStacy, who has already reached out to most all of you individually via email over the course of last week. You should have received an email from him with some instructions on that employee upload form. But I'll be going in and plugging in his direct contact information as well, so you guys have access to that. But really at this point, this does wrap up the VMLIP Law Enforcement Academy webinar. for today. I do want to take a pause. We've got just about 5 more minutes, or a couple more minutes here to answer any additional questions you might have. But if we haven't covered something that you want to address, or if you'd like to plug that question into the attendee chat, please go ahead and do so. But otherwise, by end of week, we'll be pulling this information together. Again, this webinar has been recorded, and we'll be hosting this on the actual portal page itself. So you'll be able to access that link and share that with any other team members that might be interested in utilizing this service. But I think the biggest takeaway here is it's a brand new service. We certainly encourage utilization and participation from this. Our goal here within Local GovU is really to assist you all in making this as streamlined as possible. Richard Hartman, you asked a question here. How does the billing work? The best answer for that is there's no billing required here. This is offered to you all at absolutely no charge. So we handle all the costs associated with this program directly through VMLIP, who is offering this at no cost to all members. So you're never going to receive a bill for this. You're not going to receive or be required to pay into this program. It is available to you all at absolutely no cost. Great question, sir. But again, as far as the getting this facilitated and moving forward, it's our goal to not only provide you with that one-on-one instruction, should you have the opportunity to do that or be interested in doing so. Steve DeStacy or myself will be able to answer any additional questions you have. Also, when involved in getting employees uploaded in the system, let us take that workload off your shoulders. The best part about an online platform is really that convenience factor of this. So it's our sole opportunity to assist you in making that as streamlined as possible and taking any of those common training burdens off your shoulder and rolling this out. Doesn't look like there's any more questions coming up at this point. So again, thank you all for joining us this morning. Actually, William Hogan here. Does taking any of these classes reduce our locality's insurance costs? That's a great question, sir, and one that I don't have an answer to, but I would recommend passing that information or that request over to Thomas Bullock. He would be able to follow that up as he works directly with VMLIP and will be able to provide you with any additional answers concerning that. Unfortunately, I just can't answer that at this point in time, sir. All right, folks. Well, thank you guys again for joining the webinar today. We will be hosting another one on Thursday. If you have any additional staff persons that might be interested in doing that, it's going to be the same location or same time, I should say. So it's going to be 10:30 a.m. on Thursday morning. So if you had any other ones or individuals interested in taking a look at this or having a second look, please go ahead and join us. We look forward to hosting this again and getting this program underway. Thank you all. I appreciate your time this morning, and we look forward to the opportunity to work with you. Have a great day.